evening. Terrorism is a global problem, and Kenya has been dealing with her own share of terrorism in the last couple of years. Of course, not forgetting the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing, and all along the narrative has been Al-Shabaab recruiters are looking for young men and women. However, tonight on KTN Prime, we will tell you a story that will shock you, especially if you're a parent and you're a guardian. They're now targeting children in school, children as young as 14. Food for thought there. Thanks for joining us. Let's take a look at the top stories tonight.
He told them that he had been promised $10 million once he blows 100 people.
Teenage terror recruits, a shocking discovery by a Nairobi mother. Suspected Al-Shabaab kidnap a teacher from a northeastern Kenya refugee camp. The Nakuru Twilight Zone, 6 sex workers murdered in 1 week.
The beginning of the withdrawal of UPDS from South Sudan.
Plus, Ugandan army to leave South Sudan. Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Meresha Owiti. We begin with a focus on security and terror. This is a story that every single parent and every single guardian needs to take a look at. Her 14-year-old son had been offered 1 billion Kenyan shillings for every 100 people he kills once he joins the terror group Al-Shabaab. And it is this seemingly lucrative offer that lured him into the terror group. And tonight, our reporter Ian Wafula speaks to a mother who only recently discovered that her teenage son was a new terror recruit.
In August this year, a group of about 20 children aged between 12 to 17 are reported to have left the country for Somalia after they had been recruited by the terror group Al-Shabaab. This number, as we have found out, could have actually been 21, except that one of them had not finished attending the radical classes that they were receiving from the group, and also it occurred to us that he stayed behind so that he could be able to sit for his Kenya certificate of primary examinations, which are due next month. Now today, his mother actually braved herself to talk to us and reveal the horror tales of how she discovered that her son had been recruited into the terror group.
He was a clever boy. He used to get from 423 marks, 463, and he dropped to 230. So that's when I started suspecting something is not right. And I asked him why he's doing this, and he was not very friendly. Then in the evenings, normally he comes home at 4:30. He changed from 4:30 to 5:30, 5:30, 6:30, then one day he came at 7. And when I confronted him, he said he doesn't want to say where he had been. I thought it's a high time that I should take him to the authority. So I took him to Kilimani police station, children's desk, and I reported the matter there. And they started investigating him, and that's why he disclosed that he had been recruited to that bad group, the Al-Shabaab. And he's leaving the country on 4th of December for training in Somalia. Then in the meantime, he disclosed that he had been trained to use a firearm. And he said he also knows how to use AK-47. He told them that he had been promised $10 million once he blows 100 people and above, if he kills 100 people and above. And they promised him they will buy him 3 Range Rovers. And those people, most of those people who are recruiting him, the ones promising the money, are on his Facebook. One is in Saudi Arabia. The one in Saudi Arabia is about 73 years old. Then there is another elder man in Nigeria who is 68. And there is somebody else he's communicating with in Syria through his Facebook account, which they opened for him. I did not myself. And when I went back home, I checked from his books. He have most of those things in writing, including some pictures of maybe what is being trained to explode or something like that. The boys who are recruiting him into this have a school bus. I paid my son's school bus, the school bus which picks him from home and back home. But in the evenings, he doesn't take the bus that I paid. He takes that bus that ferries those.
And the bus is fitted with Wi-Fi also?
Yes, yes. The bus is fitted with Wi-Fi. They have a computer in the bus, They have Wi-Fi, they have access to even phones and everything. Okay, before, like if I could promise him I'll beat him up or I'll discipline him, he was fearful. Now he fears nothing.
The revelations by the parent actually changes the conversations that we have had previously, that often the recruits into the Al-Shabaab terror group are from poor backgrounds and are of an older age. We also had a chance to talk to police spokesperson, that is Charles Owino, who confirmed that they have indeed received the report and it is indeed a matter of great concern, and they have set aside a special team to investigate this particular issue. Ian Ofula, KTN News, Nairobi.
A story that should concern every single Guardian. So at the height of terror attacks in the country, Nyumba Kumi initiative was invented, and at that time it was to counter the activities of the Al-Shabaab group. So tonight on KTN Prime, focusing on that story that has been done by Ian Wafula, and looking at the age of that recruit that is 14 years old, and to think that he went back to school, tried to speak to some of his friends to join the group. Should the Nyumba Kumi initiative be revived to counter Al-Shabaab recruitment? Should the Nyumba Kumi initiative be revived to counter Al-Shabaab recruitment? Let us know what you think. You can tweet us at KTN News. You can tweet me directly at Linda Gutu. You can send a short message to the number 22155. Use the hashtag Young Radicals so that I may be able to follow up on the conversation. Let's see how that goes. Alright, let's still stay with security matters. And a Kenyan was on Monday morning kidnapped by people suspected to be members of Al-Shabaab militia in the sprawling Hagadera refugee camp in Dadaab, Garissa County. Dadaab OCPD Raphael Kimelu said the teacher working with Wendell Trust was taken from Hagadera refugee camp by the armed men who had concealed their faces. The OCPD said security personnel were dispatched to the area to pursue the captors believed to be heading towards the porous Kenya-Somali border. The kidnapped teacher was identified as Judy Mutua. Sources from the Dadaab refugee camp said an NGO vehicle on its way to Hagadera was shot at by armed men who reportedly took over the vehicle before abandoning thereafter. The fate of the driver is still unknown. Now, following that incident, most of the NGOs operating in the refugee camps are reported to have halted their essential humanitarian operations except life-saving programs such as food distribution and health. Let's now take you to Nakuru, and yet another sex worker was found dead in a hotel in Nakuru, raising concerns of a serial killing of sex workers in the Kenyan Rift Valley town. Scores of the workers took to the streets demanding investigations into the killings.
Monday morning, outside a local lodging next to the Nakuru main bus stage, a huge crowd has gathered. Yet another woman, said to be a sex worker, was found dead in the facility. Police believe that the deceased was procuring an abortion.
Asubuhi kama saa 5 mlango ukawa bado haujafunguliwa. Watu wa hiyo lodging wakawa na wasiwasi. Walienda kufungua mlango, wakavunja, na kweli walimpata mama akiwa na vidonge vya dawa, na sehemu yake ya siri ilikuwa inatoa damu, na pale kuna foetus ambayo ilipatikana ikiwa imefungwa kwa nguo.
The incident brings to 5 the number of sex workers who have died in Nakuru within the past week. The last 4 were murdered and skinned, allegedly by a serial killer, causing panic in the town and among sex workers in the area. Under the Sex Workers Alliance, the sex workers took to the streets Monday protesting the growing insecurity. One of the murdered women was killed Sunday in a very gory manner as her face was disfigured, her breasts chopped off, an eye gouged out, and her private parts were missing.
No possibility where 4 sex workers can be dumped on the same place, and there's a CCTV, and the OCS in Boden is not doing anything. The OCPD, we have been coming here for a week, and now we have decided now we are going to take our actions and to demonstrate and to show that the whole sex workers, whether you are sex workers, we are all concerned about these killings.
And we want to see the law take its course, because we are sex workers, we are mothers, we are daughters, we are sisters, and also we are Kenyan citizens.
Police say the case is under investigation, saying that though sex work is illegal in the country, every Kenyan deserves the right to life.
We are going to enhance security in the entire town. And also in Kano Street, where they are complaining they have been harassed.
Sharma Mani, KTN News.
Kenyan journalists may have a reason to smile after a member of parliament agreed to amend controversial clauses of a bill viewed as a bid to gag the media. Thus, member of parliament Aidan Kainan has now given into pressure to amend the controversial Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Bill 2014. Among other things, the bill seeks to impose a $500,000 shillings fine and jail term for journalists who publish reports perceived to defame parliament.
Or a legitimate expectation.
From the word go, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Bill 2014 did not go down well with the media. At a breakfast meeting between National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi and editors on the 9th of September last year, the Media Council, the Kenya Parliamentary Journalists Association and the Editors Guild raised opposition to the bill, sponsored by Eldas MP Aidan Kainan.
This law should not be passed in its current form, because it will impede the same rights that are guaranteed under the Constitution.
You have no choice as a parliament but to be a progressive parliament, being the first one elected under this new constitution.
The media took issue with 3 clauses of the bill, seen as an attempt to gag the media and protect parliamentarians from scrutiny. Clause 27, which requires that the permission of the Speaker or Chairperson of a committee be sought before the electronic transmission of House or committee proceedings, and clauses 34 and 35, which impose a $500,000 shilling fine and a jail term of up to 2 years for journalists who publish reports perceived to defame Parliament. On some controversial clauses, the Speaker backed the media.
Some of the issues you raised, and I've seen some of them, I agree totally. Especially that before this bill, when I saw it, I wondered whether the mover had actually read the Constitution. So you are right.
The Kenya Parliamentary Journalists Association sought changes to the bill and presented proposed amendments to the sponsor of the bill, Aidan Kainan, and the Powers and Privileges Committee. The committee met in Mombasa 2 weeks ago and is yet to give its report. But with the sponsor of the bill, the media appears to have won round 1 of the battle.
I have now contextualized amendments and new provisions, new clauses, taking into account the views from the Kenyan taxpayers, and in particular, the concerns raised by the members of the fourth estate.
Kainan has deleted the clauses the media had issues with, clauses 27, 34 and 35.
I have deleted the whole of clause 27. Not even the amendment that suggested. I have deleted the whole of clause. So is that further improvement on even what you wanted?
The bill has already gone through the first and second reading and is now headed to the committee stage where the amendments will be considered. And the media will be banking on MPs to back the amendments to ensure the controversial clauses are deleted from the bill. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Let's focus on education now, shaking off the shadow of doubt arising from a perceived unpreparedness. Candidates of the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exams sat their first papers. The students expressed hope that they will perform well despite the 5-week strike by teachers in public schools.
Frisking, prayer, signing, and it's all systems go for Form 4 students in Starehe Boys Center and for the thousands of other students across Kenya. Apart from the French and music examinations that have been completed, computer science was the subject to officially boost students into this year's KCSE examinations.
We shall not be moved.
With teachers downing their tools and declining to return to classrooms, the 5-week go-slow rocked the academic pillars of the nation, frustrating this year's candidates.
Well, at some point we had to close the school and we had the Form 4, the candidates remaining in school, and so we embarked on focusing on the Form 4 so that we prepared them enough for the exams. So the strike may not really have distorted the preparations for the candidates.
In a scale of 1 to 10, I would say maybe 7 in terms of preparedness.
The strike affected us in the sense that not all the students were coming during the strike, though the teachers were here.
The students are, however, hopeful that they will perform well.
Yeah, we can even beat the private schools on the national schools. We are very confident that we can do our best and we'll beat them.
It has been a tough third term for public schools here in Kenya, but both Form 4 students and school management are confident that the KCSE exams will favor them. But will it reflect on their results? Only time will tell. Zinzi Kibiku, KTN News.
Let's now cross borders into South Sudan. Ugandan troops have begun to withdraw from the war-torn nation of South Sudan. Ugandan Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary Ambassador James Mugume said the forces will, however, be replaced by a neutral force to oversee the peace process in Juba. But as KTN's Solomon Serwanja now reports from Kampala, this withdrawal may not necessarily mean peace for the world's youngest nation.
In December 2013, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni sent troops to South Sudan at the peak of the conflict between President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Dr. Riek Machar. The Uganda People's Defense Forces UPDF have maintained a strong boot presence in the war-torn country. This has not gone down well with former Vice President Riek Machar, who led the rebellion, saying the presence of UPDF forces is a stumbling block in the peace process. In fact, the peace deal that was penned in August by both factions was largely pivoted on the withdrawal of all foreign troops by the 10th of October. Today, Uganda's Permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador James Mugume, pronounced Uganda's withdrawal from the world's youngest nation.
Uganda today announces the beginning of the withdrawal of UPDS from South Sudan.
The Chief of Defense Forces of the Ugandan Army, General Katumba Wamala, expects the withdrawal of the forces to be completed by the first week of November.
It's not just a question of running away, it's a matter of organized withdrawal, which means you have to take all the equipment and all the assets and everything that went in an organized fashion, and then be able to hand over the responsibilities to South Sudan and possibly UNAMIS.
This pronouncement has been received positively by the South Sudanese community living in Uganda. John Lomoro, a South Sudanese student who has since settled here because of the crisis in Juba, says that it is a step forward in the peace process.
They are pulling out, particularly the UPDF, that creates a conducive atmosphere for both parties to start trusting each other.
Lomoro is however skeptical that the withdrawal of the Ugandan troops is not reason enough for the refugees in Uganda to return home.
People need total peace to come before you could talk of repatriation of South Sudanese back.
When military intervention takes place, with time it converts into an operation, and the operation leads to stable peace. Then you pull out. But now we are seeing UPDF pull out at the time of operations, and when stable peace has not yet been constructed.
The withdrawal of Ugandan troops from South Sudan is also in line with the UN Security Council resolution that was made on the 9th of October. Now, whether this is a step in the right direction to finding peace in the war-torn region is just a question of time, considering the simmering tension between the two rival factions. Solomon Serwanja, KTN News, Kampala, Uganda.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's turn our attention to Tanzania. January Makamba is a young Tanzanian politician with presidential ambitions. He did contest this year in a crowded pool of Chama cha Mapinduzi, that is CCM presidential hopefuls, and made it to the shortlist of the party's final 5 candidates. The current Deputy Minister of Communication in Tanzania is campaigning for re-election to his Bumbuli constituency, but he is also a key member of the John Magufuli's presidential campaign secretariat. KTN's political editor Ben Kitili talked to Makamba earlier today. This is what he had to say.
It is less than 2 weeks to the elections. What is coming from the campaign trail? How confident are you?
No, we're very confident. Since the beginning of the campaign,
We've managed to mobilize our members and party followers. We've got a very good candidate who is energetic, who speaks to the people's issues, and who offers hope for a better Tanzania. We are seeing a large turnout in our rallies, and increasingly the momentum is on our side.
The candidate that is maybe the main rival to your candidate, John Magufuli, that is Edward Lowassa, is a former member of CCM. His departure, how has it affected your campaign?
He, took a handful of, our members who had lost in primaries anyway. But when he went there, the Secretary General of the largest opposition party resigned because of his arrival. The chairman of and longest opposition activist, very respected Professor Ibrahim Lipumba, resigned. So the casualty of Lowassa's departure from CCM is actually the opposition, and not because of departures of these opposition leaders, but also because the opposition decided to, in picking him as its candidate, decided to give up on a very important issue, which is corruption. This election was going to be on an indictment on CCM's corruption, because for the past 10 years, opposition really grew and managed to mobilize popularity on the basis of corruption issue. And whenever they pointed to CCM, they always pointed to Mr. Lowassa as the poster child of CCM's corruption. So when you pick him as your candidate, that means you give up on a very critical issue. So it's very interesting in Tanzania now that the opposition is having difficulties talking about corruption.
Then there was a departure of former Prime Minister Frederick Sumaye, and in the last 1 week, veteran politician Kingunge Ngombale Mwiru. How big a dent have those, especially the last two departures, left on the CCM party?
As for the former Prime Minister, we know that he has been irrelevant in Tanzanian politics for the past 10 years, and he doesn't command popular support, and therefore we don't see it as an issue. Obviously, he's helpful to them as far as helping out their candidate. To speak in rallies, whenever he doesn't manage to speak for a long time, so he's there, as a wingman. As far as Mzee Kingunge Ngombale Mwiru, that was a surprise because all his life, he's been in CCM. Actually, he's a founder of TANU, so he's been in politics for over 62 years. So all the good things about CCM he's part of, and all the bad things about CCM he's also part of. Now, for the majority of younger people that you were talking about, as to what extent, they will see him as a symbol of change, that we don't believe, that is the case.
You are a presidential aspirant for the CCM party. You managed to make it in the top 5. A lot of holes were punched in that nomination exercise. What is your take on it?
The nomination process was set up in 1995, and it hasn't changed an inch. It's exactly the same process. You fill out the forms, we go through the party structures, they shortlist 5 people, you go to a vote, you get top 3, you go to another meeting with our Congress, you get 1 candidate. Nothing has changed. Much as we respect very much Mzee Kingunge, I think he ought to be honest that what is happening here is that his candidate did not go through, and that's precisely the reason that he chose to follow him wherever he went.
The same studies have shown that the older people of Tanzania, the more conservative, who are the better voters anyway, support CCM, while the younger people supporting the opposition candidate Lowassa, and there are more young voters registered by the National Elections Commission. You know, how does that play out?
Obviously, the margin is bigger for people above 50 and women. So one might presume that because the majority of voters are younger, therefore we may have a problem. That could have been true if we were losing in that particular group, but we are leading even amongst young people. The key thing for us is to turn out the vote, to get our supporters excited to go on the polling day, and that depends on how the poll is organized and how peaceful that day is. So that's why we continuously insist that election be peaceful, so that people can feel safe to go and express their will.
Good evening and thank you all for keeping it KTN. Time for business now. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. The Treasury is planning to offer a one-year Treasury bond of up to 20 billion during its monthly auction on Thursday next week, even as concern about government's financial position mounts following delayed payments. And of course, according to the Central Bank of Kenya, the cash-starved government has drawn down most of the 275 billion shillings raised from the international market last year, leaving just 25 billion shillings at the special central bank account. The move raises critical questions about government expenditure and also removes the safety net needed to raise quick cash cheaply. As such, the government has been forced to accept highly priced debt from the local market, with yields jumping to above 21% last week in efforts to raise sufficient cash to cover loan repayments. With the one-year bond being amortized, it suggests that the government plans to stagger repayments, unlike regular one-year bonds where the debt is repaid at the end of the period. The amortized bond will be paid back piecemeal throughout the contract period, with 30% redeemed after 6 months, 50% on 26th of July next year.
Monetary and the fiscal sort of working in tandem, working together.
When there are delays, obviously, there could be certain stringent, based on the contracts, certain stringent measures that are put in place to ensure that going forward there are no further defaults. Yeah. So I guess that in a way has somewhat affected just the all aspect of the availability of cash.
And profits from the amortized bond will be used for budgetary support. Now let's move on now. Tanzanian low-cost carrier Fastjet has been granted an air service license, marking the first step towards having the carrier operate locally. Fastjet's bid to make a comeback into the Kenyan market after it exited through selling its stake in Flight 540 has encountered roadblocks after it, particularly national carrier Airways, that is Kenya Airways, was opposed to the move. And the protracted battle had at one point seen the Tanzanian Civil Aviation Authority threaten to scale back the number of Kenyan flights allowed into Tanzania. The granting of the air service license allows the low-cost carrier to now apply for an air operator certificate that will allow it to operate local flights. Fastjet currently operates in Tanzania, South Africa and Zambia. Low-cost carriers have been gaining business on the African continent with ticket prices that give major carriers a run for their money. Fastjet has identified 5 countries as key markets for the initial expansion of its business plan over the next 3 years and has already started operations in some of the states. County governments grew revenue collection by 28% in the 2014-2015 financial year. During the period, the devolved units collected a total of 33.8 billion shillings compared to 26.3 billion a year earlier. According to the Controller of Budget report, improved efforts in revenue collection come as counties leverage on technology to seal leakages that existed in the past. A number of county governments have signed deals with banks and other financial services providers to act as revenue collection agents. From the analysis, Nairobi generated the highest amount of local revenue at 11.5 billion shillings during the period, followed by Mombasa, Nakuru, Kiambu and Narok counties that raised 2.4, 2.2, 2.1 and 1.64 billion shillings respectively. The county that raised the lowest amount of local revenue during the reporting period was Tana River County at 33 million shillings. County governments have and continue to agitate the national government to increase budgetary allocations, and devolution allowed county governments come up with their own tax structures that have seen some counties devise creative ways to generate cash. Taxing chicken, border borders and cyclists have become common laughable features of revenue collection that have drawn the wrath of residents across the country. And now to that weekly feature that we usually have on Mondays. The increased demand for edible oil amid failure of traditional crops like maize is pushing Kenyan farmers to plant other crops like sunflower. Majority of farmers, most of who used to grow maize, are now shifting to high-value crops for better returns. On this week's edition of The Next Frontier, Phil KTN talks to a group of farmers in Nakuru who have turned to sunflower farming as an alternative cash crop.
Over the last few years, some maize farmers in Kenya have been a disgruntled lot with dwindling returns and poor marketing of their crop. As an alternative, farmers have tended to diversify, seeking alternative produce to make ends meet. Meet these sunflower farmers in Nyahururu who have embraced the crop with the help of Jielimishe, a non-governmental organization that is seeking to improve the lives of school-going girls through empowerment of their parents.
The project seems to aims to increase the life chances of girls through education. We want more girls to enroll, stay in school and learn.
Sunflower farming in Kenya has proven to do better than maize in arable and semi-arable conditions, as it requires less rainfall and nutrients than maize.
So for the farmers around this place, they've been struggling a lot, growing maize on small scale, maize and beans, some of them potatoes, which don't do so well because of the sporadic rainfall.
The short growing season of the crop makes it extremely suitable for producers who make use of adaptable crop rotation and fallow system.
Hii ni kilimo biashara na hii itakuwa ikitusaidia kuliko mahindi kwa sababu hii inakuwa haraka.
Sunflower is considered to be a more versatile crop that is also used to make animal feed. It is also used to make milk, flour and protein supplements, among other products. The crop requires less agro input such as fertilizer for optimum production. Sunflower thrives in warm to hot weather conditions with full sunshine during the day.
We are looking at supporting 700 farmers now to grow sunflower in a larger scale, and also because in a larger scale because most of the farmers have more than 2 acres.
The crop is however very susceptible to bird damage, and for this reason it cannot be cultivated at all in some areas. On the positive side, however, the drought tolerance and low input costs of the crop are major advantages.
Ndofu na hasa zinakujanga, na wakati zimekujanga zinaharibu mahindi, lakini hasa hii ufuta haikuli, lakini zinakanyanga kuiharibu.
The price of oilseeds depends on the season, but farmers are paid on time and enables them to meet other obligations. The farmers get certified planting seeds and fertilizer.
Hii ufuta iko na usaidizi mkubwa sana kwa sababu ni mafuta. Na hii mafuta naona hasa bei ikiwa sawa, hiyo itatuinua,
which supplies input for crop production. The sunflower oil in Kenya has been growing magnificently owing to the high growth of income levels, increased trends towards spending, better living standards, and growing health consciousness among Kenyan consumers. Due to the tough climatic conditions, these farmers have decided to try their hands in sunflower farming, hoping that this flower will be that golden goose that will lay the golden egg that will help them provide for their families and alleviate poverty. Philip Keitany for The Next Frontier.
And now let's take a look at how the markets did perform, and of course a look at the NSE, the Nairobi Securities Exchange. For more news, log on to our website, standardmedia.co.ke or ktnnews.com. I'm Joy Doreen Bira. Sports is up next.
Right, let's look at sports now. The 10th edition of the Marsden Madoka Marathon received a shot in the arm after telecommunication announced a 2 million sponsorship for this year's edition. Over 1,500 athletes from different parts of the country are expected to take part in the event, which will have different categories, including a 21-kilometer race and a 10-kilometer race. The marathon will take place on the 17th of October. With the marathon in its 10th edition, the organizers feel the marathon has continued to grow to an extent of attracting international athletes and also becoming a calendar event in national athletics.
Through the support of the various organizations and various individuals with Athletics Kenya and a few other people back home, we have been able to get this far.
Those of you who go on Saturday, you will understand that this is one of the best marathons in the Safaricom Athletics series. It does extremely well. It brings people together. It promotes peace. And all in all, it's a great platform for athletes to harness their skills.
Former FIFA Executive Committee member Warawi Makudi, the current head of the Football Association of Thailand, has been suspended for 90 days pending a full investigation. The Ethics Committee of Soccer's governing body announced that today. They said Warawi, who was on the committee in December 2010 when it voted to award the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 tournament to Qatar, will now face a formal investigation. The Ethics Committee said in a statement that the 63-year-old was due to stand for re-election as FAT president on October the 17th. Last week, South Korean Chung Mong-jun, who also sat on the executive committee in 2010, was banned for 6 years, while Jack Warner, another member of the committee at the time, was banned for life on September 29th. And the 4th edition of the Superbike Championships was held on Sunday in Kiganjo area, Kiambu County, where 25 riders participated in 3 categories. Hundreds of fans turned out to witness the heats and finals, where David Karuri won their 1000cc category. The category was competitive, with participants showing their prowess. Paul Gishemi and Alex Mumu won the 600cc and 250cc categories respectively. The organizer of the Superbike Championships, that is Alan Muigai, famously known as DJ Styles, wants more awareness for the event and hopes the Kiambu County government will develop the sport further. Take a look.
Superbike riding is something you see once a week on Sundays and all of that. So we felt it necessary to get together, see whether we can create a race activity. It would be fun for Kenyans to come and watch, indulge and just distract themselves a little bit. Some leisure, family fun day.
Senior Road had been offered 1 billion Kenya shillings for every 100 people he would kill after joining the Al-Shabaab militia group. And the concern is on his age and the fact that he was able to access some of his schoolmates, classmates, to talk to them about the group. And so, on our big question tonight, we're asking you, should the Nyumba Kumi initiative to counter Al-Shabaab recruitment. Some of you are already saying this is an initiative that's already on the ground. So we'll ask, should we now rally up support for Nyumba Kumi to counter such stories that we're seeing, especially with this age of the young boy? Charles Opil says government should forget Nyumba Kumi, focus on winning hearts and minds of his people. Atmao says, I blame parents. This kid should have been taught, thou should not kill from the first day. Kabete has tweeted something very interesting. He says, it's all about the locals. Nyumba Kumi is running very effectively in my area, that is in Bungoma. I need to hear more from the residents of Bungoma. Let us know how well that is working out for you. And it is on that note that we leave it on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this bulletin. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.